At the beginning, I want to thank you all of members of the place where I will speak today. And what is really interesting, today when you start singing the hymn, the great lesson, we can never make the world safe by fighting. And immediately, just a lightning, I look at my beginning phrase where I plan to tell you it's about war and peace. Again, the hymn 578, we can never make the world safe by fighting. It's not from Leo Tolstoy, it's from your book of hymns. And now I will start. I will read one sentence of Tolstoy, War and Peace. All thoughts that have huge consequences are always simple. All thoughts that have huge consequences are always simple. My whole idea is that if vicious people are interconnected and make up strengths, then honest people need to do the same. I repeat again. The whole idea is that if vicious people are interconnected, you know these vicious people who make war, who commit crime and injustice, and make up strengths, then honest people, everybody, at least try to be honest, need to do the same. It's mean to do the action to make world better place. This is how is with first hymn 578. Then I was really touched by the presentation about our wife of Tolstoy, Sophia, which has been presented by Kim Wills. It's interesting what you just say. It was a lot of controversy about Tolstoy's wife. But we can return to Sophia a little bit later. At the beginning, I try to show you a couple pages of Epilogue of War and Peace. It's a huge book. I will not read any of these pages. It takes you a while. But I am sure that during your college or during your life, somehow you hear about this book. And I remind that the major issue why Tolstoy wrote this novel was the invasion of the Napoleon in 1812. In history, as about wife of Tolstoy, we have a lot of controversy. Why Napoleon with 600,000 soldiers start this war? Even his major enemy was England. Why the Russian Tsar Alexander I give all the authority to Kutuzov? And finally, the war started well for Napoleon. In a couple months, the Moscow was taken. You can imagine, even it's 200 years ago, at the June 2nd, the French entered Russia, and already in a couple months, Moscow, the holy city, was abandoned. Abandoned is like the same. If suddenly in 1941 the Germans go on the Russian territory, and in 2 months also Moscow will be abandoned. It never happened. And then Tolstoy put this question, why this decision been made? all the nobilities, the Tsar, who called himself the savior of the country and the person whose destiny was to serve country, somehow give all this authority to Kutuzov. Kutuzov, who sometimes sleep during the major events, have their breakfast during Borodino, during the war in Europe, he also do completely insignificant things during the conversation with his general. But this old man make possible to lose Moscow. If for some reason you see the movie War and Peace who been made in Russia in 1969, you can see the chaos of the cities, Moscow, when thousands of the people living with all their possession, left their houses, left their serfs, left their many good things, and they're living. And Napoleon entered. And Tolstoy think, okay, the war is lost. The war is lost. The major city at the same, you can imagine, is Moscow being taken, or somewhere in American history it will never be happen. But the war been lost. But for some reason, and Tolstoy wrote, sometimes the history event don't have any rational explanation, not logic or common sense. Something mysterious. After all the defeat, during all the battles at the beginning, even at Borodino, Napoleon stayed couple months in Moscow, leaving the city. And then Kutuzov now attacked him. Don't try to take advantage of the people who start to be weak. And slowly, after 600,000 army in France returned less than 60,000. And all these people perish, not in the war, not in the fight, just when in retreat during winter. Tolstoy, in his epilogue, spent maybe more than 10 pages in analysis, not about Napoleon, not about Alexander, but two definitions. What does it mean will, and what does it mean power? How the power of the people being delegated to the will of one person. In Tolstoy's situation, it's how Napoleon can organize and can order all the thousands of the European people start invasion in Russia. It's one side, and from another side, how Kutuzov, the general, the young people, young officers always make joke about him. He not so well sit on the horse, he always sleep, but this old man saved thousands of the Russian soldiers without useless battle. And sometimes I expand the sense of the epilogue on the situation what we have now in former Soviet Union, Russian Empire, and now Russia in their war between two pieces, between Ukraine and Russia. How the Tolstoy will write about this? Make vice versa. Doesn't it matter who started first? It was Napoleon 200 years ago, or it was Putin 2 years ago. Who is the person who protect their land? It can be Ukrainian generals or President Zelensky, and on the other side, on the Russian side, is another general. But instead of making the decision to save the people from the both sides, they spare thousands of the soldiers who fight till their last breath. Think about. And why I take this epilogue, I realized we can spend time try to answer how the things happen in history. Why Kutuzov left the second major city of Moscow and allowed Napoleon to get in. And then from another side, all the history of the Napoleon, all Europe mentioned that then Napoleon is the greatest man. He brings freedom to all West European countries. He brings freedom to Poland, to Netherlands, and make the idea of French Revolution. But then, suddenly, after his successes, he lost this war. And again, his authority fell down from greatness to the miserable part of the man who lost. And Tolstoy writes us, yes, sometimes the will of the thousands of the people delegate to one man, and one man make a promise that he will follow the will of other people. And sometimes it's go when it's success, but suddenly when the success is not reached, immediately all these millions of the people start to criticize, as was happened with Napoleon and with other historical figures. When you on top, glory, hallelujah, for all your advance, but when Napoleon fell from his position as the conqueror of the Europe, suddenly he been put in exile and died being by himself. Another big question. First, shortly I say, how you see the connection between will of the people, will of the individual person, and power. How the will of the 100,000 people start to be a power and move thousands of people to commit murder, destroy the country, and kill each other. The second big question, what Tolstoy put in his epilogue, it's about the family values. Family values we speak today about, we hear about Sophia, but Tolstoy, in a part where he wrote about the peace, he present his model of the happy family. And his happy family is the family of one of the heroes, Nikolai Rostov and Maria Bolkonskaya. And everybody can really recognize the image of Maria with the wife of Tolstoy, Sophia. Yes, it was a lot of controversy. And I will tell you only about one episode between Nikolai Rostov and Maria Bolkonskaya, which remind us the conversation between Leo Tolstoy and Sophia. Let me tell you briefly that Sophia Tolstoy, when they start together, family was a young woman, 18 years. Tolstoy was already in the middle 30s and have a lot of experience in his life. He take part in the Crimea War. He already have some different situation in his life, and we cannot tell that from our common view his moral standard was high. But things happen, and in their conversation, when Maria asked Nikolai about their relationship, it means Sophia, like a metaphor, Sophia speak with Leo, how you love me? And Nikolai Rostov asked, how I even can mention about this? If I ask, do I love my finger of my arm? It's the same Tolstoy vision of happy family. This is something which is interconnected and cannot be divided. The same thing like the marriage with Sophia Tolstoy and Leo Tolstoy. This is about family. Now I want to spend some time about metaphor language of Tolstoy. For example, when we try to realize what is the major motive and understanding of history event, Tolstoy used simple explanation. It reminds me the explanation sometimes we can meet in Parable of Christ. And what one of the explanation of Tolstoy, imagine the cook who do the big dinner. And when he used this dinner, part of the meat which is not used, he thrown outside and the dogs pick up and ate this. And the dogs say, oh, it's a great cook. He do a great thing. But then, when the cook finished with the sautéed meat, he start use different vegetables, onions, artichokes, peppers, and also thrown what is in to the dogs. And dogs suddenly cannot eat it and say, what's going on? What the bad cook? Why he feed us with this? But then, Tolstoy wrote, when the dinner was complete, everybody ate and been satisfied. It's mean. Sometimes in history events, we cannot find what is exactly right and what is exactly wrong. At the end, we have the dinner is equal to the historical event, and event is good. This is one thing. And when I read this couple times, I realized that the epilogue can be long, around 50 pages, and some pages is just as we read something historically, where history about how the history taken by different scientists, what the big difference between them. But with this example, I clearly understood that every history event, every battle, every situation, what even we have in our personal life, can have different side. And the major result of this can be seen not even today, not even tomorrow, but late in the 10, 20 or 50 years. Because Tolstoy started to write War and Peace after 50 years when the war was finished. And another thing, what I try to tell you, it's about the issue of how Tolstoy write about dreams. For example, one of the major hero of War and Peace, Pierre Bezukhov, been taken by the Frenchmen and put in some kind of prison during the conquering of war. And suddenly Pierre get out of his cell and start laughing. And the soldiers ask, why are you laughing? Are you not afraid of death? He say, no, I have my soul is eternal. You cannot take my eternal soul. And I suddenly realized sometimes during the hardship, during the problem in the family, during the problem in country, during the problem with other things, we forget that we have our eternal soul and we can laugh on any situation which can put us in danger, and even when we can lost our own life. This is something which can be easily understood. I recommend you to Google the movie which been made in 1965 in Russia. Even you don't need understand all the Russian words. They have English subscription, but this is the image of the person who can be easy shot. It's a war. Nobody will calculate he been accused that he want to fire some buildings or kill Napoleon. And suddenly he start laughing. It's You can imagine if you have a death sentence and suddenly you start laughing to your guards. Does not matter. You commit a crime or not. This is one thing. Another thing, when one of the heroes of the war, nobility Andrei Volkonsky, been wounded, and he look up and he see blue sky. Before, like a army person, he want to commit he want to do something big. He want to know of the people. He want to have this appreciation of all people who is around them and tell, oh, great Andrei, he saved the country, he do best. But suddenly he see the blue sky and he realized, no, everything is vanity. Everything don't have any reward. Only the blue sky, and he look in the blue sky and say, this is the meaning of my own life. Look in the sky and understand that I am alive. And very often we look on the things which is around us and forget this great example what Tolstoy give us, especially when we think what is the meaning of our life, what is our desire, what is our commitment. And the example of Tolstoy, another metaphor, with a huge oak. We all go through some hurricane, some trees fell, and we need to do arrangement, cutting some of them. But in Tolstoy, this is a huge oak, and during the winter, oak was without any leaves. And they say, yes, the tree died. But then when the spring comes, suddenly the green leaves appear, and this is the image that the life is never stopped. And all the heroes of the Leo Tolstoy War and Peace, even through death, even through hardship, they return back to life. For example, Natalie Rostova, one of the precious person for Tolstoy. He loved Natalie Rostova. Natalie Rostova go through some complication in her relationship, lost one of her brothers, youngest brother, Peter Rostov. But then suddenly, at the end of the story, he accomplished herself, not in the serving of humanity. And this is why I again return to Sophia. Tolstoy asks us how we need to live to make some effort to make life better. This was another conversation between Nikolai Rostov and his wife. And when Nikolai say, oh, we need to do this, we need to help to the people, we need to reconstruct our houses, suddenly Maria say, no, yes, it's correct, we need to do this, but the most important, to build our own net, to build our own family, our own children, our people who is around us. Don't make a grandiose, make peace all over the world. Start from the main peace with your family, with your co-workers, with your people who close to you. And suddenly I realized, yes, everybody has some obligation. But before, when we start a huge thing, usually politicians can say us everywhere, all over the world, yes, we will make the country, we make great Russia, we make great America, but we forget that all this greatness, how Tolstoy wrote 200 years ago, start from the family. And this family is not the family between husband and wife. It is between the family, between the union of the people who move together every day. Then this is how the Tolstoy, after he show us in epilogue what is the ideal in a family. Second, he mentioned how the will of the regular people delegated to the one person. In our question, this is Napoleon and Kutuzov and Alexander I, the Tsar. Then he put a great question about responsibility. Responsibility. The general order, move. The Tsar say, start. Kutuzov or Napoleon, but what about soldiers? And then Tolstoy bring his own solution about responsibility. The people who only follow the order have less responsibility because they justify by their masters, generals, leaders, presidents who make them to do this. And I think about it means some of the men who's listening to me, being in the army as me, when we don't have any chance, because it was draft in my country, in United States during the Vietnam also was a draft, and then suddenly if I start here that what I doing during my army, spending time in the army in different part, it cannot be justified. Probably it will be not army. And Tolstoy said, sometimes the important and justification for the soldiers when they even in the war, not lay on them, doesn't matter what they have done, but completely go on the people who sit comfortably in their places where not bombarding and where not any destruction or fighting. This is still I cannot comprehend this because there's a lot of controversy with this Tolstoy opinion about justification of the war. Justification of the murder, of the killing, of the cutting, when the thousands of French people killing thousands of Russian people and vice versa. Finally, Tolstoy gives his own decision. He made solution of these things. He not take that the God, the relationship Tolstoy and divine intervention we cannot understand because Tolstoy at the end of his life even he create his own theory and has thousands of the followers. He was against the war and he was even against of the patriotism because patriotism sometimes used by the leaders of the country try to gain their own plan, their own desires. And sometimes these desires not to save the country, not to make the life better, but to stand in power as long as possible. And one more time I repeat, another conclusion of Tolstoy, the justification of the war is needed not for the people who make the order, but the people who really stand and who really fight. In this situation, for the French soldiers, they've been told by the Napoleon this yes, we need to invade Russia because Russia support England and England try to put a sanction on France. From other side of the Russian, they also say yes, we need to defeat Napoleon because he tried to conquer our country. But basically, not for the soldiers who stay and fight, will be not so big difference. Who will be in charge? They will be under the French master or under the Russian master. And Tolstoy very clearly says that the solution of the war sometimes It can be territory. Sometimes it depends on the historian, can be different. But in reality, the solution of the problem which been raised by the war can be made by improving the trade, improving of the education, more schools, more trade, more merchants, and all the controversial, all the disagreement between countries will be solved. But unfortunately, for all the life of the history, people fight. And Tolstoy, in final pages of the epilogue, say, yes, now Napoleon lost almost 400,000 soldiers for what? For nothing. Yes, Russia thrown out Napoleon and take the Paris. But does the life change? No, the life no change. Still, just 13 years after, we have the revolt of the group of Russian officers. They want to throw out the new Tsar Nikolai I, and then the reaction starts. And then Tolstoy look up on the divinity. Divinity, he believed that God has his own plan, but this plan can be realized in the 100 years. But we live daily. We live every day, and we demand the solution of our days now, not waiting for the second coming, as Tolstoy says, not looking for the promised land. We want to stay on our own place and be filled with the joy. And I want to finish again with the same things what I start. It's about how we can achieve this. All thoughts that have huge consequences are always simple. The words is simple. Be in peace, be joyful, have family, don't be afraid, fight when you need to fight, and have a joy when you have a joy. And then, but whole idea that if vicious people in the time of Tolstoy's Napoleon, who tried to invade the Russia, but before he was called like a person who brings liberation to West Europe. But then vice versa, from the liberator, he started to be a tyrant. Think about this. How some political leaders, they start well, but finished in exile or, in the worst, under the guillotine. The French Revolution. The French Revolution with their ideas of liberty, equality, being finished with the mass murder of the people who started this. And again, one more time, I will read. The whole idea that if vicious people are interconnected, it means the evil people who commit all this injustice, war, and make them strong, then honest people between you, me, need to do the same. What to do the same? Get interconnected. How we can interconnect it with each other? Through common joy and through common work, and especially if we believe in the same values what we proclaim. And sometimes to be completely devoted to the ideas of the war and peace, not so easy. It will be always a battle. And as Kutuzov say, yes, I lost the battle, but the war was won. And he say, Lord, you answer my prayer. Now I understand why I say these words, but it was written by Tolstoy, but the Kutuzov say, Lord, you hear our prayer. Moscow was lost, but the country was saved. Sometimes When I put on my own life or on the life of my family, I cannot expand this even on the country where I live or been born. I understand through some complication, with some hardship. Never give up, and remember the poetry with the big oak which start be dry, but then the spring come and the leaves and new life appear. All right, I have some other things to say, but I truthfully ask you, make effort, open your Google and find War and Peace movie. It's made in 1965. You will never find any sleazy moment. It was about love, about dignity. It's about how to be a better people. And I'm sure, I speak already in this place, but for the second time I realized what is important in our life is joy. And we have different view of joy. It's about Sofia Tolstoy, it's about War and Peace. But the major things is simple. Have joy and be connected.